Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. Here are some of the key players.
Jake Barnes, narrator, an American newspaper writer who has been badly wounded in war, desperately in love with Lady Brett Ashley.
Lady Brett Ashley, an alcoholic, a beautiful and appealing expatriate, loves Jake Barnes but is engaged to Mike Campbell and has other promiscuous relationships.
Robert Cohn, a Jewish writer living in Paris, bored with life, a casual friend of Jake, becomes infatuated with and eventually a lover of Lady Brett Ashley.
Frances Klein, an American girlfriend of Robert Cohn who wants to marry him.
Georgette Hobbin, the prostitute picked up by Jake Barnes.
Count Mythipopoulos, a wealthy Greek expatriate who finds Lady Ashley extremely attractive, a war veteran.
Mike Campbell, Lady Ashley's fiancé, a drunk who has vicious tongue, antiseptic, and hateful towards Robert Cohn, but also lashes out at others.
Bill Gordon, Jake's friend from England who goes fishing with him and later attends the fiesta in Pamplona.
Montoya, owner of the hotel where Jake and his friends stay in Spain. Jake's friends who respect him as an aficionado of bullfighting.
Pedro Romero, a young, handsome, promising matador who attracts Lady Brett Ashley's attention, eventually leaves Pamplona with her.
Harvey Stone, Jake's friend in Paris, a writer.
Belmonte, a rival matador, Romero, who is part of his prime in the sport.
Edna, an American girl Bill Gordon picks up at a friend fiesta in Spain.
Harris, an American who spends time fishing at Burgett and with Jake and Bill. Chapter 1. This is Robert Cohn. He was a Jewish man who attended Princeton. Robert Cohn, well, he had a sad life, and he was a bit depressed. To overcome this, he took up boxing. He ended up being a middleweight champ. But due to his lack of social skills, he married the first beautiful woman that spoke to him, and together they had 3 marvelous children who were absolutely gorgeous. But eventually family proved too much, and his wife left and took their 3 precious kids with him. So in the aftermath of losing his wonderful family, he decided to write the great American novel. He went to Paris, where he met his buddy Jake and Frances. Frances wanted to marry him, but he declined. Jake and Robert discuss going on vacation to Strasbourg.
Chapter 2. Robert Cohn goes to New York in hope of publishing his novel. While there, he finds mild success and gets 2 very attractive young women. Robert then goes to see Jake at his office and they discuss visiting South America. Then they go to the bar and get some alcohol.
Chapter 3. Jake meets Georgette, a prostitute. She makes a move on him, and he pretends to be sick. But he was lying, and the problem happened to be somewhere else. Jake, Georgette, and Robert all go to a bar. While at the bar, Lady Brett Ashley shows up with a cab full of homosexuals. Jake does not like the homosexuals. Then, Robert Cohn asks Brett to dance. She declines. This makes Robert Cohn very angry, and he leaves. Jake then leaves his prostitute 50 francs and leaves with Brett. They get in a cab, and while inside, Brett confesses that her life is miserable.
The Sun Also Rises, chapters 4 through 6. Chapter 4. Jake and Brett ride through Paris, and things get a little intimate. Before things get too far, though, Brett puts a stop to it. They head to a cafe and see Zizi, who introduces them to Count Mythipopoulos, who takes an interest in Brett. Jake, getting a little mad, chooses to go to his apartment, where he then proceeds to break down, crying due to his insecurity about his masculinity. He falls asleep a while later, only to be waken up by the drunken calls of Lady Britt Ashley. After talking to Brett for a while, she chooses to leave with the Count. Chapter 5. Jake drives to Robert Cohn's office to meet up for him for lunch. Cohn asks about Brett, and Jake tells him that she's a drunk and that she's going to marry Mike Campbell. He explains how he met Brett at a hospital for his injury, and Cohn gets upset that he didn't describe her in a positive way. Jake tells Cohn to go to but after he threatens to leave Jake alone for lunch, they smooth things over and don't talk about Brett again. Chapter 6. That evening, Jake goes to meet Brett, but she's nowhere to be found. After searching for her all around Paris, he runs into his friend named Harvey Stone, who claims he hasn't eaten in several days. Jake then drives him to a cafe, but meets Robert Cohn, who's waiting for Frankie. Jake gives Harvey some money, and he begins insulting Cohn by calling him a moron. Harvey goes into the cafe to have some dinner, and then Frankie shows up. But instead of talking to Cohn, asks Jake to speak in private. She states that Cohn is not willing to marry her anymore. She goes on to further complain about not being able to get any alimony from her ex-husband, and that to add on to her bad luck, her book isn't going to be published. Frankie and Jake go back to speak with Cohn, and she tells Jake that Cohn paid her £200 to go to England. Jake feels awkward then, and he chooses to leave.
Chapter 7.
Jake is home alone when he hears a knock on the door. He opens it to find a dinosaur. Just kidding, it's only a whore. Relieved, Brett sends the Count to go get more liquor. Brett begins to tell Jake how she's going to San Sebastian when the Count returns with the liquor. The three go out to eat and order wine, the food, then more alcohol, more food, and so on and so forth. The three then go out to the club to dance, when the Count asks why Jake and Brett haven't gotten married yet. Jake and Brett get embarrassed, and soon Brett gets sad. Poor Brett. Jake accompanies Brett back to the hotel, and in the hotel room things happen. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Brett gets angry with Jake, for who knows what reason, and kicks him out.
Chapter 8. Jake receives a letter from Brett in San Sebastian, and a letter from Cohn telling Jake he is in the country. Frankie decides to go to England, and Jake's friend Bill decides to come to France. Bill and Jake decide to go to Pamplona to go fishing and have a fiesta. As Jake and Bill go to the bar, they see Brett pull up in a cab. The three head into the bar and get drinks, and more drinks, till they're surrounded in alcohol. Then Jake and Bill randomly attend a boxing match. Olay.
Chapter 9. Bill and Jake meet Mike and Brett in the bar to get drinks, and soon Mike leaves to go get a haircut. Mike comes back with his new haircut. Jake believes Cohn went to the country but was actually in San Sebastian with Brett. Jake then meets Mike and Brett at their hotel, and they persuade him to go to Spain with them. Bill and Jake eventually leave Paris to meet Cohn and Bayonne, where Jake meets the two at the train station.
The Sun Also Rises, Chapter 10. Jake, Bill, and Cohn rent a car to go from Bayonne to Pamplona. Cohn reaches the Spanish border and converses with a Spanish carabinier. Once in Pamplona, they check into the Hotel Montoya. Bill goes to write some letters, Cohn gets a shave, and Jake goes to the cathedral to pray. He then begins to think about money and what a bad Catholic he is. Jake and Cohn go to the train station and meet Brett and Mike, but they don't arrive, and this makes Cohn upset. Cohn says that he will meet them at San Sebastian. Bill then proclaims his face should be everywhere due to its beauty.
Chapter 11. Bill and Jake take a bus to Brigette where they'll be fishing. Along with them, on the bus, are a bunch of Spanish Basque peasants. At some point during the trip, they stop to buy more alcohol before resuming their trip to Brigette. When they get to Brigette, they check in at an overpriced hotel, where they find out that they're the only people in the hotel at that point in time. The next morning, Jake wakes up early, gets dressed, and goes out to dig for worms. After that, he and Bill sit down in the cafeteria to eat, and they have a conversation about irony. They then go into a discussion about the Civil War, and please note that Montauk and Decathlon is not prejudice against gays in any way, shape, or form. This next bit is a direct quote from the story. They then talk about how that's what the Civil War is about. Abraham Lincoln was a faggot. He was involved with General Grant. So was Jefferson Davis. After they eat, they head out to hike to the Ireti River they'll be fishing. Once there, they fish and have a lunch of chicken and wine. And then before they head back, they take a nap under the trees.
Chapter 13. Brett ends up fainting on the train with her fiancé Mike. Cohn sends a telegram announcing he'll be arriving on Thursday. Bill and Jake say goodbye to their English friend Harris while drinking. Then Bill and Jake leave and arrive in Spain and go to Montoya, the innkeeper. Bill, Mike, Jake, Robert, and Brett all meet up and drink. Then they go to the arena together to see the running of the bulls. Then they all go out to drink again. Bill, completely drunk, announced that Cohn is a steer. Then they drink more. Chapter 14. Jake goes to bed thinking. He thinks about Bill making fun of Cohn and decides that he also finds it very funny. Then he falls asleep. The fiesta wakes him up. Jake, Brett, Mike, Bill, and Cohn all go out and get wineskins and join in the fiesta. And then Jake finds Cohn totally passed out in the back of a store. Then they all go to the arena again to watch the first bullfight. Then Jake meets Pedro Romero, a young bullfighter. They watch him bullfight and he's super duper good. Chapter 16. When they wake up the next morning, it's raining hard. Montoya tells them there's not going to be any bulls today because of the rain. So Jake goes out with Romero and they drink. And then Brett and Mike, who is super drunk, get into a big fight because he knows she's falling for Romero. And then a very angry Mike and a very angry Cohn start fighting as well. So then Bill takes Mike away because he knows he's going to get his butt kicked. And they go poke British people because that's what you do for fun. So meanwhile, when they're doing that, Jake takes Brett, who is crying, and she announces that she's tired of feeling like a female dog. But then Romero and Brett run off together to be together.
The Sun Also Rises, chapters 17, 18, and 19. This chapter starts out very nicely with Bill, Mike, and getting kicked out of the bar by the police. It doesn't say why, but it's very obvious that they are all severely drunk. The next important event that actually happens in this chapter is Robert Cohn decides to beat up Jake and Mike after Jake does not tell Robert Cohn where Brett actually went. At this point, Robert Cohn calls Jake a pimp, and then they have a little fight. Jake ends up being knocked out, and Mike gets hit once, but just chooses to stay down. Another random event that seems to happen in this chapter that could hold some significance is that a man is killed by a bull after being impaled by its horn. During a conversation with a waiter, the waiter says, "Oh, look at all this killing happen over a silly, stupid sport." After Robert Cohn punches Jake in the face and knocks him out, he goes on a bed and cries his eyes out. The next series of events that happens is as a result of Robert Cohn crying from this, his ego gets much bigger, and then he decides to have a fight with Pedro Romero. After having a fight with Pedro Romero, the only result out of this fight that is really emphasized is that Pedro's face gets very disformed and bloody. Brett's former husband A serviceman had a loaded service revolver whenever he slept. He made her sleep on the floor. When he went to bed every night, Brett took the gun and unloaded every single shell. It made her feel uneasy.
Chapter 18. Brett meets everyone in the cafe except for Cohn, who has left Pamplona. Mike is mad that Brett is having an affair with Romero and overturns the table. Brett wants to go to church to pray for Romero. However, they return to their hotel and Brett goes to Romero's room. Jake checks up on Mike, who is again drunk, his room a mess. Brett and the gang go to the bullfight. There Romero is loved by the crowd, but Belmonte, who has come out of retirement, is not as popular. As Romero succeeds in killing his bull, he cuts off one of his ears and hands it to Brett. After the bullfight, Jake is depressed, so they go to the cafe and get drunk. Brett now has left on a train with Romero.
At this point, Jake flies over to San Sebastian, and then he decides to get drunk and spend some time alone on the beach. It is very relaxing, however, he's very bored. While he's in San Sebastian, Jake gets a telegram from Brett Ashley saying that she's in trouble and needs his help immediately. Jake drops everything and goes to meet Brett. The story ends in a very ambiguous way, where it ends up being that Jake stays alone and then decides to go in the taxi cab with Brett, at which point Brett says, "Oh Jake, we had such a good time together." And Jake says, "Wouldn't be pretty to think so." The end of the story, essentially, is that Jake is still alone and that the message is very ambiguous.